Has your care home been stung by a bad online story that's staying there? Perhaps it's the press covering or requires improvement, or perhaps even worse. And yes, we know what those kind of stories would be, and I've seen it all. So what I'm going to show you today on this video is what to do as a solution. If in particular your care home has a bad, it's usually a negative press story online, which is there, and perhaps is its first ranking under the Google News search. I'm going to start off by showing you exactly what I mean. So let's get straight in. So let me show you what we mean by a negative news story. So here we go. I'm in the US right now, so that's why I put UK here in the search. But let's imagine I'm a family member. I'm interested in Netherclay House Care Home, and see where my cursor is. I might make this kind of search, but because I'm in the US, I just want to make it UK relevant. So I'm going to press UK. And I'm doing a Google News search. Why? Because, I'm a family member. I'm smart. I want to know what the press has been writing about this care home that I'm interested in. And sure enough, look what comes up. I find out that the press have been writing that it's a requires improvements home. We've only got 2 stories here about this care home under Google News. One is from the Somerset County Gazette, and well, they're both from the Somerset County Gazette. That's curious, double listing. But that's not good, right? And what about if you want a solution to that? Well, I'm going to show you a solution in a moment. But it can be, requires improvement, it can be inadequate, it can be a whole number of different negative stories that are online, particularly under Google News. And this is what we're looking at today. And the reason why it's the Somerset County Gazette is because that's a high domain authority media outlet. And that's why it's featured on Google News. So I want to give you one other example, because this other example I'm going to give you actually features a solution as well. So let's go here. Now this here was February 2023. So it was back in February 2023, and it was for a care home called Oriel Care Home. And you can see here, Google News, Stourbridge Care Home requires improvement. And there it is, right at the very top. And I can tell you, there were no other positive stories about that care home back in February 2023. And this was a problem the care home faced, and they wanted a solution. So let's look at the situation now in March 2025. So I'm going to go straight here. I'm going to do a search, or do a completely new search to show you this is all real. Oriel Care Home UK. Again, because I'm in the US, that's right. I'm inputting UK. And I do a search under Google News. And here we go. Look, so what we have is 1 positive story, 2 positive stories, 3 positive stories. And that negative story that we saw a moment ago is no longer on page 1. Great. In fact, where is it? We've still got another positive story here. And so there it is, back on page 2. Now, happy days. This one here, this negative story, is not going to go away. But the idea is to get it further and further down the rankings. And let me just go back here to show you exactly what's happened, so it's very clear. Again, we've got a positive story here. This, just so you know, has nothing to do with the care home. But this is a positive story here. High domain authority. It's the BBC in particular. It's high domain authority. This has got nothing to do with the care home. It's not got nothing to do. This is a positive story about the care home. And again, as I mentioned, there's this positive story here. So that's the solution. That's what it looks like in reality. So, how has it been achieved? Well, I can tell you how it's been achieved. It's been achieved by essentially making sure that this home has journalists writing positive stories about the care home. Yes, it requires improvement home. I think it's a good now, but in fact, no, it still requires improvement. It still is requires improvement. But there's positive stories about this care home, which over time has and because there's been a strategy here of making sure that journalists write good news stories about the care home, and therefore the home is featured under high domain authority media websites, that negative story has been pushed down to number 2 on page 2. So again, that's the general strategy solution. Now, if you want to know how to write positive press stories about your care homes that get journalists to write good news stories, then there's plenty of videos on this channel to show exactly how to do that. But I want to give you again, this is real life examples, a real life example of a news release for this particular home. And here it is. Again, this is about a resident reunited with a local vicar, and here you see the whole story written here. And this was put out with some great photos and circulated to the relevant regional media. And again, let's see where it is. There we go. No, it's not that one. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. No, it's not that one. That's a one that we wrote later. Yeah, it is. And this one you can see is June 2023, which is just, if you remember, the bad news story was in February 2023. So this one was written just a few months after that negative story was featured online. And you can see here, if you click on the actual story itself, you can see here it had a nice selection of photos to go with it, etc., etc. You know, that gives you, I hope you can see, a real life solution to this problem, which I showed you before, was having that negative story right at the very top. If you do, and if a family, most importantly, if a family does a search online under Google News. So that's the way to resolve it. It does require work, but the most important element is you make sure the press write positive news stories about the care home and it goes online. These are high domain authority media websites. And to get a Google News ranking, that's exactly what you have to do. Now, let me address another question which you may be having, which may be, well, won't over time that negative story be reduced or go further down that Google News ranking? So let me just make sure we show you again what the scenario is. That negative story, if you remember, was February 2023. Now, since if there were not these negative stories, if there were not these positive stories, then that February 2023 story would be, remember it was now down here on page 2, that story would almost certainly, I can tell you right now, wouldn't be on that page 1. And let's think about where it may be. Remember, this story here, I'm sorry to say, has got nothing to do with Orioles care home, so it might not be picked up under a true Google News ranking if these positive stories were not there. And again, these positive stories have really, specifically about Orioles care home, have removed that negative listing significantly. It's because of those positive stories rather than the passing of time, that's made that significant improvement. And what I think, to demonstrate my point, again, if we look at this negative story here, Google News, there's only, and again, these have got nothing to do as far as they may have a mention of this care home in these two stories. But again, if this stays as it is for 2 years from now, that's going to be exactly the same. Those two stories are going to be right there at the very top of the page. And I'm willing to put essentially Google's algorithms and its own vicissitudes are changing the whole time. But if I was a betting man, I would put a bet that it's still going to be there in 2 years' time, unless action is taken. So I hope that gives you a flavour of the action and the solution to this kind of problem that care homes which rely on their reputation essentially face. And if you like this video, which I hope you did, please make sure you subscribe to make sure you don't miss any other videos like it. I'm Adam of Springup PR, and we help care homes get more inquiries and fill beds faster by PR and digital marketing.